Hey y'all, this is Sherelle Martin with Nitram Financial Solutions, where we do bookkeeping without boundaries. So last week we talked about some reasons and how to help businesses keep and stay payroll compliant. This week I want to kind of back it up a little bit and just take it back to the basics. Like, let's just talk about the number one question that comes up when it comes to payroll, which is what's the difference between an employee and a contractor, and when someone should be one versus the other. We get lots of questions about that. People get creative and they want to try to hire people as contractors so that they can avoid paying payroll taxes and benefits and all of the things, when the fact of the matter is that whether a person is an employee versus a contractor all boils down to what the person does and how they do it. So I wanted to kind of take it back and just talk about what an employee is versus what a contractor is. This question came up because, for those who don't know, my daughter is a professional dancer, and she's being paid as a contractor. She's an independent contractor. And she was like, wait, what? They don't take taxes out? And so, having to explain that, I was like, you know what? I think I'll share that in a video, and she can share it with whoever she wants, her friends who are also dancers, that it may help them as well. So it's a twofold is what we're getting out of this week's video. So an employee is a person who works for an organization, and the person was hired to do a job. There was a job description set out. The person was hired to do the job. They work for the company, meaning the people who hire them controls when they work. They control how they work. They provide the equipment that they work with. So if they're working in an office, they provide the computer and all of the things that are on the desk, and they provide an office space for that person to come into. They dictate when that person works. They give them a set schedule and let them know that they need to work between set hours in order for them to be paid. They may provide them with benefits such as health insurance and retirement plans and things of that nature. When we're talking about contractors, we're talking about either independent contractors, which are individuals who are working more on a freelance basis. They don't have an actual business set up. And then we're talking about contractors who are business owners, who are running businesses. They may have one or two people underneath them. They have gone through the process of setting up paperwork and filing paperwork with the state to say that we are a legal business entity. In both cases, though, the person who is hiring them does not tell them how to work. They are relying on them to do the job. They do not tell them necessarily when to work. And this is particularly speaking in an office environment space, right? They're not telling them to show up between 8 and 5 every day, Monday through Friday, right? There may be hours where they can say that they prefer the person to work between, but they can't dictate and say, you have to work these hours and this is when I want you to work. They're not providing them with any type of benefits. So there's no health insurance, there's no retirement plan. They're not withholding taxes, which is the key thing. They're not withholding taxes from the person's paycheck. They're simply paying them on some sort of schedule. It could be once a month, it could be twice a month, but it is a schedule that's not necessarily lined up with a pay schedule, right? Those are kind of the main differences between the two, between the employee and the independent contractor. Because with the employee situation, then the person hiring them is their employer, and they are withholding taxes and filing the taxes on their behalf. And so when the person files their taxes, they have withholding to offset that income. With the contractor situation, they are responsible for their own taxes, which means they need to be making estimated payments throughout the year, every quarter, and or they may have to pay at the end of the year when they actually file their taxes. So that's an important distinction to understand, especially for people who are new to the contracting space and not understanding this method, because they get their check and they're all excited and they got all this money, and not realizing that, oh, I have to pay taxes on a portion of this. And so in those instances, you as the contractor needs to be with taking a portion of that income and setting it aside to pay their taxes, again, quarterly or at the end of the year. So the line that separates whether a person is an employee and versus a contractor is a very thin it's a very thin line. It is a gray line. It is a very thin line. So as a bookkeeper, you should help the business owner make sure that they understand the differences between the two and make sure that they are compliant under those rules, like making sure that they're not trying to say that a person is an employee or is a contractor when in fact they are an employee. That happens 90% of the time is what I'm going to say, where someone is operating as an employee, but they are being treated as if they are a contractor. The person is paying them as if they're a contractor, even though they're telling them when to work, how to work, providing them the equipment to do the work. So as a bookkeeper, you need to make sure that you understand the difference so that you can help guide the business owner on that difference so that they can stay in compliance as well. So that's your tip for this week. It's to explain the difference between employee versus contractor. If you like this video, please subscribe and please share it with anyone who you think will benefit.